Good afternoon, all. This is Joyce Barrett with Heritage Ohio, and today I'm joined by Frank Quinn, who will be giving the presentation, and Mary Beth Hirsch from the State Historic Preservation Office. Welcome to the Paul Bruhn Appalachia Project webinar. Heritage Ohio worked with the State Historic Preservation Office to apply for a $750,000 Paul Bruhn grant to support 5 Main Street communities in Appalachia: Cambridge, Coshocton, Marietta, Millersburg, and Portsmouth. The projects we're talking about have to contribute to a National Register district. This is our second Paul Bruhn grant, and what we learned through the first one was a lot of building owners do need help in developing projects to meet the Secretary of Interior's guidelines if they're not accustomed to working with that. So with this grant, we added a consultant into the project to help provide support to the building owners, which is really pretty unique and we think is really favorable for building owners to get better projects done. Being that these are federal funds, we have a lot of responsibility to review these projects with a fair and equitable eye towards everyone's opportunity. The Ohio Main Street programs will be forwarding their top choices to the state level if there are multiple applications. And through this pre-application process is what we're going to be talking about today. Then consultants will work with selected applicants, which will again, in turn, be reviewed by an independent state review panel in June. So this webinar will be available to all registrants today. It will be sent in an email from GoToWebinar with a link to the recording, as well as tomorrow we'll have it posted on our YouTube channel. So if you go to the Heritage Ohio YouTube channel, you can also find a copy of this, and you're free to share that with people who need to know. So I think that's it. And Frank, are you ready to take it away? I just want to add, I guess that there is a question box and you can ask questions, type those into the question box at any time, and I'll interrupt Frank over and over with those.
Okay. So, and I see that Amanda Terrell, the preservation officer, has joined us, and Mary Beth Hirsch is also on our webinar today. So I wondered if one of them or both of them wanted to give some comments for some Ohio History Connection SHPO perspective on the Paul Bruhn grant.
Well, thanks, Frank. This is Amanda Terrell. Hi, everyone. Just wanted to say I'm really excited to be here and to listen in on this webinar, and I'm really excited about the Paul Bruhn opportunity. So thank you all for participating, and best of luck.
Hi, this is Mary Beth Hirsch. I too am excited that we are in a position of funding some projects in the southeastern part of the state with the Paul Bruhn grant funds. This is kind of a rare opportunity for historic preservation funding of a fairly sizable nature. And I'm really looking forward to seeing some excellent applications result from the addition of a consultant to our process this year.
Great, yes, so we are excited about this partnership and looking forward to working with our 5 Appalachian communities with Main Street programs that are eligible to participate. As a housekeeping item, I want to draw your attention to the handouts box. We have 2 handouts available for you today. We have both the pre-application form and some pre-application guidelines to help you make your way through the process of doing that pre-application and submitting that to your local Main Street organization. Hopefully on your screen, what you see is the Heritage Ohio landing page for our website. What I want to do is start by directing you to Paul Bruhn information. We have a page on here. If you go to heritageohio.org/PBHRGP, let's see, let's hope this works. Okay, I hope you see this. This should bring up the Paul Bruhn Grants Program webpage that we've created for you all. And you'll see that we have a lot of links with application information, standards for rehab information. If you scroll down, you'll see we have some webinar links that you can use to help familiarize yourself with the different aspects of the work that needs to be done, how to figure out what kind of work is permitted. For example, I will open up the pre-application form. So when you click on that, you just want to open it with your Acrobat reader. So you'll see that we have a fillable PDF file that hopefully is very user-friendly, very easy to use. And we also have pre-application guidelines. Again, all you need to do is open with your Adobe Reader, click OK. And that should bring that up. So these are the two important documents. And also, just from a housekeeping point, I want to make sure that if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt, take yourself off mute, or type a question into the chat box. And we'll do our best to answer questions as they come up. So what you see on the left of your screen is that pre-application form. This is the form that you will submit to your local Main Street organization. It's a form that the local Main Street organizations for us need to submit by February 14th. This is going to be perhaps a competitive process in your local community, depending on how many property owners apply. Initially, there's no limit on the number of property owners who apply. However, there is a limit of only 2 project finalists that your local Main Street program will evaluate and then send along to Heritage Ohio. So why don't we go ahead and jump right into that application form. So what you see is the fillable information. We start with contact information, as one might expect. Towards the bottom of the page, we see historic district name. So if you're in the downtown Coshocton district, you can just say it's the downtown Coshocton district. And then we ask for a National Register reference number. It's okay if you don't know that. There is information in the guidelines form about how to find out what that reference number is. There's some additional contact information from the property owner and additional information that we request as far as who your elected officials are. So we can make sure that we keep them informed and in the loop in the process of the grant program. So there, down towards the bottom of page 2, we start with a project summary, briefly describing what you hope to accomplish. And then we have a page of a project description. You have been given quite a few lines to write your project description down. If you can succinctly and accurately describe it without using the whole page, don't worry about doing that. By the same token, if you need to submit some additional information to us, you can feel free to just submit that in a Word document if it's helpful for us in our or helpful for your local Main Street organization in evaluating the application. We have a section on project feasibility, basically stating how you feel that you would be able to complete your project that you want to complete within the acceptable time frame. We have a section on the schedule or the timeline. And then we get into the financial piece of it, the amount in grant funds that you're requesting, the amount in grant match that is coming from your sources, and that creates your total project budget. We have a section for matching sources, an expanded budget, depending on what you're looking to specifically work on with your building. And then we have a few sections where there are some point amounts given. So the way this application is set up, the local Main Street program will be able to take your application and score it on a scale of 0 to 100 points to help in their evaluation of the applications. So we have a section on economic impact. That's up to 25 points. We have a section on the financial need, how the Paul Bruhn grant funding will help to facilitate the successful completion of your project. I'm getting a call from my wife. Sorry about that. We have a section on the importance of the Rehabilitation Project, up to 25 points. That we're really looking at how important is the Rehabilitation Project to the overall long-term preservation of the building, making sure that the project as you propose it complies with the Secretary's standards, things like that. And then we have some additional points. There's a residential housing, 0 or 10 points if your project results in the creation or reactivation of upper floor housing units. A reactivated spaces, 0 or 10 points. If you have a space that's currently vacant or underutilized, think about like a 3-story downtown commercial building where the 2nd floor and 3rd floor used to have office space and residential space, but it doesn't currently. But through the grant program, you plan to create new office space or a new residential unit, then you could be eligible for that additional 10 points. And finally, we have a 0 or 10 point bonus, I guess you could say, for projects that are not active tax credit applications. So just to be clear on this, if you have an active tax credit application, either through the state or the federal rehab programs, you would not be eligible for any points under that. If this project does not use tax credit incentives at this time, you would be eligible to add 10 points to your project application. Finally, there's an additional 0 to 10 points, which the local Main Street program can use to evaluate the overall quality of an application. And we follow that up with a page of making sure that you have checked all the application fields, that you have searched out contractor estimates so you have an idea of how much your project will cost, that you have plenty of pictures for us to look at, that you agree to having a preservation covenant placed upon the property, or that you have a preservation agreement that is executed with the preservation office, that you understand that you'll use federal procurement standards as they're written, that you comply with civil rights, equal opportunity employment guidelines, labor law requirements, things like that, and that you as a property owner do have the adequate financial resources to be able to undergo and complete the project. So we have signatures for the Main Street program, and then a signature page for the property owners also. So in a nutshell, that is the application form. So are there any questions right off the bat as far as that application form. And if not, then what we can do is go over the guidelines and instructions on the form. So Joyce, can I ask you to tackle this first couple pages? I might have a phone call I need to make.
I was on mute. Sure. Here we
I'm
go.
sorry to, yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, Frank left me without full screen there, but I think you can get the gist of this. And I cannot scroll through it. Let me see if I can open up a different the guidelines. I'm sorry, guys, because with him not there, I have to change presenters. Okay, there. You can all see this. These are the guidelines to go along with the application. There's about approximately $550,000. There's a 10% cash match to match the grant request, and usually nobody has a problem meeting this because projects always cost a lot of money to get done. But so you know that. February 14th, so each Main Street community will be choosing their own deadline when they need to get their applications from. So you need to be in contact with your Main Street manager locally, and those have to come to Heritage Ohio by February 14th. Between February 14th and June 22nd, because then we'll know the 5 to 10 projects that have been forwarded. You'll be working, the building owners will be working with the consultants, and they will be helping during that period, not writing your application, but helping you understand the work so that it meets the Secretary of Interior's guidelines. In June, we will have an independent review panel that will read those grant applications and make the selection for the money. In general terms, each Main Street community has $110,000, but every project will be different. We won't know how much each project's asking for. They might be asking for 25 and 40 in one town and 110 in another town. So there will be some discretion of the committee to put resources towards various projects. Based on the information that you've provided to us. And then it's a federal grant, remember, there's a lot of, we'll be getting there, things you need to comply with, but the projects, construction period needs to be completed by April of 2024. So again, hopefully you've gotten that through, that it's listed on the National Register in one of those 5 communities. During the application review process, we do expect each Main Street to be cognizant of a conflict of interest. That means no board member from X town can be applying and having their own board review their project. That would be considered a conflict of interest. The grant payments are reimbursements. You can ask for reimbursement 50% of the way through the project and then at completion. So we do realize that it's tough putting the money out there. Again, one of the major factors in this entire process is meeting the Secretary of Interior's guidelines, which we're used to that, and we think they are practical, common sense processes that save the historic integrity of a building. When you're unfamiliar with it, it's because you're unfamiliar with it, not that it's super difficult. But we realize many people don't work with these every day, so it's unfamiliar, but don't be afraid of them. Also, as federal money, it has to meet American with Disabilities Act, and there's We do have a webinar that's referenced in those tools to help understand that. That does not mean every building has to have an elevator and things like that. There's all different ways and scale of projects that need to meet that. The scope of work is the part of the process that the consultants will really be helping you with, really describing the treatment for all of the historic aspects of the building, every part of the building that's going to be impacted. And like I said, we think this is a great opportunity to have the consultants working with the building owners, doing the work for you that you're unfamiliar with. We're required to, the construction projects here do have to have a project sign. With our last Paul Bruhn grant, we kind of had a little ceremony and came out to the community and did a press release and had the politicians come, because we're lucky to have the opportunity to bring this federal money into your communities. And we are doing progress reports every 6 months. So it isn't like, you take the money and we don't hear from you. There's sort of constant communication, because historic buildings always have surprises, and we are your partner with you, making sure that surprises are handled well. Again,
Hey, Joyce.
yeah, you're back.
I'm back. So yeah, I'm sorry. I could take back over.
Okay, let me give that back to you. You can see where I am there. Just a second. Make there. There you go.
All right. Great. Thank you. So again, my apologies for the interruption. Where were we? We were looking at
Eligible.
eligible applicants. Great. Yes. Thank you. So I think the most important eligibility guideline is that your project building needs to be an income producing building. You need to charge rent. That doesn't mean that if a building is completely vacant and you're not realizing income on that building at this point, it's not eligible. But your building, by the end of the process, you need to be renting portions of your building to tenants, and those tenants need to be paying rent. So income producing, the building needs to be listed in the National Register of Historic Places, either individually or as a contributing building in a National Register Historic District. And then the building needs to be located in one of those 5 Appalachian communities that are also our Main Street communities there. So we note that ownership interest, it could be the name on the deed, or it could be a lesser interest, such as if someone had a long-term lease on a storefront area. However, you would need to get the express permission, of course, of the property owner saying that this was okay to apply for and receive funding through the Paul Bruhn program. As we also stated, that there is either a preservation agreement or a preservation covenant that will need to be filed with the either with SHPO or formally filed in your county courthouse at the end of the grant period. So important there at the bottom that the Main Street organizations are all going to be transparent with eligible property owners about the availability of funds, program requirements, and their application due date. This isn't necessarily about a Friends of Main Street are treated differently than any other property owner. It's a eligibility evaluation basis based on the best projects, the property owners, availability with resources to complete the project, and the, as much as possible, objective evaluation of those pre-application forms that come in to the programs. So it will be up to the programs to submit their finalists to us by that February 14th deadline, which means each of the 5 Main Street programs will be setting their own deadline for when they want local application, these pre-application forms completed and sent to them so that they can have time for evaluation and make their decision on who those project finalists are. So we say up to 2 project finalists. There's no requirement that they have to have 2 projects. It may well be that the city of Cambridge, in that historic district, there's only 1 applicant. And so they're certainly welcome to submit that 1 application. So very important, and I think this will be helpful for you all who are the property owners. You know, maybe you have an idea for a project, but you're not exactly sure what is going to be funded or what would be eligible for funding. So funding can go towards planning and pre-development, having a historic architect coming in and looking at doing cost estimates, coming up with some basic specifications that then go towards become your scope of work that Joyce had referred to. Those project administration and oversight can be eligible grant costs, and then the actual brick and mortar work. So, as you see, it's also important that you don't expend Bruhn grant funds prior to the grant award being executed with the Preservation Office. And you make sure that money that is being spent meets those federal procurement standards. And we will be going over those with those projects that are funded. So you won't have any nasty surprises that jump up on you. So, but we can tell you some of the things that we won't fund right off the bat. We won't fund acquisition of a building, those costs that are incurred prior to that contract date, those costs that are incurred after that April 30th, 2024 date, architectural salvage operations or archaeological salvage operations, things like reconstructing a building that's burned down. We won't fund additions to the outside envelope of a building, things like an elevator. We would fund an elevator that was being installed or being built within a building. So there are some things that you have to be careful about what might be eligible, what isn't eligible. There's no funding of routine maintenance. So cleaning out your gutters, hiring someone to do that, we would not pay for that. Landscaping, lobbying, moving buildings, things like that. You have access to this. You can look it over, and if you have specific questions, you can always get in touch with us. So as we mentioned, there's a preservation covenant that is executed with the Preservation Office for a grant amount over $50,000. And that covenant agreement basically says that you as a property owner promise to keep your property in good condition and that you promise to maintain the historic significance of the property for the full term of that preservation covenant. There is also the potential for having access, depending on if work is done on the interior or the exterior of the building. And if you have specific questions about a proposed grant and what kind of covenant access that might require, we'd be happy to talk with you again one-on-one and answer those questions. It's important to note for someone applying for the minimum $50,000 amount of Bruhn funding, there is a preservation agreement that is executed with the Preservation Office for a term of 5 years. If your grant amount is $50,001 up to $250,000, there's a 10-year formal covenant filed with your county courthouse. So as we shared, there's that fillable PDF application form that you will complete and return to your local Main Street program. As we've mentioned, that due date for the finalists to Heritage Ohio is Monday, February 14th. Your local programs will have an earlier due date before that. As we mentioned, there are some important scoring questions that we're going to ask about the economic impact of your project, the financial need of your project, the importance of the rehab, and those, I guess, those bonus 10-point questions: residential housing impact, reactivated spaces, tax credit status, and then the Main Street organization providing a quality of application scoring. So for applicants, you complete that PDF form, submit it to your local Main Street organization. Just like I did at the beginning, you can go to our website, or you can take the handout and open it up and complete it. It's really easy to do, but again, with any questions, as you see at the bottom of the page, you can contact me. For the Main Street organizations, on or before February 14th, we can't wait to see those 1 to 2 finalist projects that you submit to us. So we need that completed application form, digital images that the applicant submitted, and any other required attachments, such as any contractor estimates that they received using Dropbox. So I will be creating 5 unique Dropbox folders for each community, so you all have private and individual access to that. And then we have a few pages where our guidelines, I mean, we have literally each question a little bit more information. So like under the property name, you can see where you can contact the SHPO at this email address to confirm that your address is in fact contributing to the National Register status of the property. You can click on this to find federal representative information. Same with state representative, same with state senator. And then we have a little bit more expanded information for you on the project summary, the project description. We have an example of a project description, kind of what we're looking for. Just do your best to fill that out. Try to be as complete as possible. Look at this from the standpoint of you're trying to describe a building and a project that we haven't seen probably before. And the better that you can describe it, the better understanding we have of what you're proposing to do. Again, with the project feasibility, summarize your ability to complete the project. And as you remember on that application form, we have a section there for the project schedule. So listing the tasks to be completed, and you have up until April of 2024. So give us, if it's a full building rehab, it might be a 18-month process. And don't say June 1st, start building rehab, June 30th, complete building rehab. We know that's not realistic. We want you to demonstrate to us that you have done your homework and really thought through the different components that are going to go into doing a successful rehabilitation. As far as the financial summary, again, it's going back to that, what amount of funding are you requesting for Paul Bruhn? What amount of match are you contributing? And what's that total dollar amount? Next, under the matching share, that 10% match, minimum 10% match is required. I think as we discussed, that match can come in a lot of different sources. It can be bank funding, it can be personal capital, it could be a community foundation that's making a grant to the project. You can use community development block grant or CDBG funds, which come from the federal level, can be used as a match. However, other federal funds, you can't match other federal grants with this funding as a match for it. Under the donor column, that's just identifying who's providing the match, if it's yourself as a property owner or a third party. The source, as it states, where is that funding coming from? Is it general operating funds? Is it a grant that's being made? And then what is the amount that is being either a firm match that they've committed to it, or if it's pending. We have then that expanded budget worksheet. So if you're, let's say you wanted to do a complete masonry repointing on your exterior. So there's a masonry column on there. You can work out what you think the total masonry project cost would be, and then separate out what your matching share is from what you're applying for from the grant share. The top the top line of the expanded budget calls out a project sign. So each of these awarded grants will have a project sign. We will give you a sign template, but then it will be up to you as the grantee to have that sign fabricated and installed on the site. That cost is an eligible grant expense. So as you're doing your grant budget homework, include some funding for the cost of that project sign. So let's say you're doing a window project, then there where it says thermal and moisture, oh, whoops, I'm sorry, not thermal and moisture repair. If you're looking at a window project, there's a doors and windows section, although we do not have doors and windows on there. I think, well, this is one small error that we have here, fortunately. So you could either go down to the other and say wood window restoration, or you could go up to wooden plastics and put that as your column for your window restoration project. And then as you saw in the application, we go into a little more in-depth on those different questions that we're asking about the economic impact, financial need, the importance of the rehabilitation project, and then again, those bonus questions, I guess you could say. 0 points or 10 points will be awarded by the local Main Street program. And then towards the end of that application, we have the checklist, the signatures, contractor estimates. We really do strongly recommend that you try your best to get some cost estimates on a project. If you come to us with a great application to do work and you've budgeted it at $50,000, but then we find out you didn't get good estimates, and then your estimates come in and you find out that, oh my gosh, it's going to be more like $200,000. Well, we're not going to have the additional $150,000 available to make up that cost. So we really want to make sure that when we make our finalist awards in June, that everyone has a really good sense of what that total project cost estimate is going to be. Finally, photographs. Again, going back to that old cliche about painting the picture of what your project looks like. We don't know what the project looks like. Good photos can really help to convey your story in that visual form of what you hope to accomplish and what you need to accomplish. So close-up images, let's go back to that window project. Having close-up images of the window openings, showing us the current window sash that are in there now, what's the condition of those windows, shots from the inside, shots from the outside looking towards the windows. The more that you can send us, the better we understand what you're proposing to accomplish. And then it would be great, also from the standpoint of helping us navigate that, you can label each photo so we know what we're looking at. And so that is the guidelines document. So we have run through the application form, the guidelines document. Your head may be swimming, but that's okay. As we said, we want to help you all to create successful and competitive applications. So take a look at these documents, print them out, go through them. If something doesn't make sense to you, feel free to get back in touch with us. And we'll do our best to help you navigate the process. Same with the Main Street program staff. Get in touch with us, ask us any questions, and we'll do our best to make sure everyone is on the same page going forward. So that's all that I have at this point. So Joyce, I don't know if we've had any questions come in.
Nobody's typed any questions yet. And, y'all, I can open the microphones up if it's easier for you to express yourself. There are a few of us here that it's okay to have a conversation. And we'd love to hear from you because it is a lot of information at once. Oh, Frank, you did such a good job of explaining it all. Oh, here's Roberta. I'm giving you the microphone, so go ahead and ask.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Okay, great. My family owns one half of a building that's on Jackson Street in Millersburg. We just own the western half of the building. Can we apply for the funds to fix the facade of just the west half of that building, the commercial building? Oops, I don't have my earbuds in, sorry.
So yes, I would think that wouldn't be an issue, just because downtowns, they're made up of adjoining buildings.
Okay.
And unless there's a real funky ownership structure that
I don't think so.
Okay. And Amanda and Mary Beth, feel free to chime in with your thoughts on this. But yeah, I would think that it would be that you'd be eligible to apply.
Okay. I had one other question. It gets to the federal. Okay. I'm sorry. My second question deals with the federal standards. The building probably is accessible on the first floor, but there's not a handicap or accessible bathroom. If we're only focusing on the exterior of the building, is that going to be a requirement?
I don't believe so. For exterior work, that you would be required to also make a restroom accessible. But for a question like that, I can certainly reach out to our National Park Service rep and ask that question and let you know what we find out.
Oh, I'd appreciate that, because we would only be focusing on the exterior
Mm-hmm.
if we move forward on the grant.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Is the first floor, is it currently used as a retail or office space?
Retail.
Okay.
Retail.
All right. All right. Well,
And
let
there
me
is
check.
the residential up. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, we have Karen Patterson has a question. Karen, you show as self-muted, so all you have to do is click your microphone and you can ask the question. There, wait, there, you're live now, Karen. Go ahead.
Okay, so you can hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So two questions. In the grant application, if there are multiple projects that are not, reliant on one another, is it okay to have multiple projects included?
So are you talking about a little bit of grant funding for a lot of projects, or are you talking about focusing on one component of a grant project that has many other components?
What I mean is this is just one building, but we need some soundproofing in our windows and we need to repair the cornice that's on the top of the building. So two different things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Certainly. Yep. It's okay to address some different issues with a
Okay.
building with one application. Yep.
Okay. And regarding the cornice on the top of the building, finding the right contractor to estimate that. Goodness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Got any ideas where I should be looking for somebody like that?
So where are you located?
We're in Millersburg.
We would probably do our homework, but the first thing, I think the first thing we would do is ask Judy if Judy Lamp, the Millersburg Main Street director, would work on cornice issues there.
Oh, okay.
So, and we can also do our homework and see if there might be metalworking people up in the Cleveland area, or try to get a couple different names of contractors who we feel like know what they're doing.
Okay, awesome. So I'll start with Judy then and also reach out
And
to
then
you
go from
guys.
there. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Perfect.
So regarding having the multiple elements then in the application, is it going to be an all or none, or would you potentially be saying, you know what, we can fund these two pieces of it, but probably not that third?
Certainly that's an interesting question, and I think from our standpoint, what we want to do is try to fund as many of these applications as we can.
Okay. Okay.
So that's really our focus. And then I don't know. I guess there's always a possibility that we have an odd amount of money left over, and we're like, well, we've got this money. We could either provide additional funding to an applicant, or we can say, hey, let's pull one more applicant and they want want a partial award. So
Okay,
yeah, good question.
we have a question. Mary Beth Sills, you have a question and you're on self-mute. So if you want to open your mic up, you can ask. Oh, okay, she doesn't have a microphone. Mary Beth's question is, if you have an applicant with 2 properties in downtown, are they eligible to submit 2 projects?
So I would say, in the spirit of competition and trying to do as much as we can with the funding that's available, that please, one property owner, limit it to 1 project only.
Mary Beth says, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh. Do you have other questions? You all know how to get a hold of Frank, fquinn@heritageohio.org, because we know you're going to have more questions. It's a complicated process, and we don't know all the answers, but we're looking for them too, because everyone has unique circumstances. Here, Dylan has no mic, so I'm asking the question for him. Is it more favorable to have personal match funds versus bank financing?
I don't think it makes that much of a difference. Anyone else is welcome to chime in, but I think the source of your funds isn't as important as the fact that you have demonstrated matching funds. So that's what I would say about that.
And we know the banks make you put money in. The banks won't, finance 100% to begin with either. So it's never come up that people were judging where their financing was coming from. It's more about the project and your ability to complete the project.
And Joyce, this is Mary Beth. I'd like to just chime in on this. Since this is a reimbursement grant program, we do encourage projects to find a way to finance all of the costs up front and plan on getting reimbursed at the end with one potential reimbursement during the project, but largely we ask that you plan on financing it up front and get reimbursed. That doesn't mean you have to have that all settled by February 14th, but by the time the project starts, that would be wise to have that arrangement clear on everybody's part.
Mm-hmm.
If there aren't any other questions right now, I also wanted to just lay out the involvement of the consultant a little bit more, if we could. We will have this is a two-step application. We're asking for the pre-application now, and then finalists will be selected by the Main Street organizations. And then in the coming months, we are entering contract with a preservation consultant. He's an architect, actually, and he will be tasked to work with all of our project applicants to develop their scope of work. He's going to assess the buildings and give you some recommendations on what to move forward with as far as the final grant scope. And then he will also help you with the final application by reviewing a draft of it and making whatever recommendations he has on that. And so the final application will be due in July, and then grants announced, at the end of June, and grants announced in July.
Yeah, great point, Mary Beth. We're excited. That's a wrinkle for this second round of funding. We did not have this in the first round, and I think having this preservation consultant that those finalists can take advantage of will help to create or just refine those projects and put them on a better footing at the start. So we're really looking forward to having the preservation consultant being out there and working with your property owners who are chosen.
And
And
one of the
just,
benefits of the involvement of the consultant is that even for projects that aren't finally selected for funding, if that should turn out to be the case, you would still have the advantage of the input of this person in giving you recommendations about your rehab.
Right, yeah, so you know what's, at the top of the priority list if you have repairs that need to be made.
I just wanted to add for the attendees' knowledge, this is part of the background work that's been going into this grant prior to your involvement, that historic preservation consultants across the state were competing for the opportunity to work on this grant and to work with you people. And I think there were 7 applicants, and so we've been reviewing those in detail, trying to find the best fit with the person who would provide the best services to you.
Any other questions coming in, Joyce? Any other
No,
hands up?
no,
Yeah.
no other hands up, no other questions.
Okay, great. Well, we certainly appreciate everyone joining us, and we cannot reiterate enough that we are available for any questions that you have. Feel free to get in touch with me. And we look forward to seeing applications coming in.
And this webinar will be, a link to this webinar will be emailed to you from GoToWebinar, and it will be available on the Heritage Ohio YouTube channel.
All right.
See,
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
bye.